Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is going to be a very interesting session which will cover the entire canvas. So we'll just start off with a small video clip before I go further. It dominates very effectively the National Highway 1 Alpha, and this domination stretches for quite a distance, where he can bring down accurate RT fire onto any convoys going on the national highway. And therefore it is of importance that we eliminate or neutralize the enemy which is holding on to Tiger Hill.
At least an entire platoon, that is about 36 intruders, are holed up on top. The army is prepared for this number to double during the next few days, with Pakistan pushing in.
If
we don't perform now, function now, then our whole existence cannot be justified.
So that was a big challenge for us, but we had to do it, and we did it.
Terrain is so tough. I'm driving in a car. Probably I know the road is not that great. I was actually figuring out that when the war was actually happening, I was thinking that how these people would have managed to go such a steep on the foot. And you never know when a bullet or a splinter hits you,
तो इनका जवाब था कि आप चिंता मत करो, मैं या तो दुश्मन की पोस्ट पर झंडा लहरा करके आऊंगा और या फिर मैं झंडे में लिपट करके वापस आऊंगा.
Like we have done it, like we were on the top of the world. It was a great feeling to have. So we had already decided our success signal before advancing for the attack. My company's success signal was "Ye dil mange more, dil mange more, dil mange more, dil mange more."
Well, you've seen the video clips of 99, some of their live clips, and this will give you an indication as to what kind of an environment we were functioning in at that point of time. It took us some time to motivate our boys. We had come from a counterinsurgency environment to a conventional operational environment, and it took us some time for us to motivate them to come back to operations like that existed, something like 65 and 71 operations. Next. Some glimpses of the area. This is Kunjare Pass, Baltoro Glacier across the line of control, Satpura Lake, the Astor Valley, the Shok River, the Mashko Valley west of Drass, and this is how the Siachen Glacier looks like. Now, as far as the LC is concerned, you start off from the top, you see the purple arrow. The purple arrow starts off from NG 9842 and traverses to the left and goes further down south, right up to Jammu. This is known as the line of control. The line of control is between the Pakistan-occupied Kashmir as well as our area of Kashmir and Ladakh. North of the line of control is the actual ground position line, which runs along the Saltolo Ridge right up to Indira Call. This came into being in 1984. Further south of the line of control is a working boundary which extends from Jammu to Pathankot, which is in dispute, not accepted by Pakistan at the moment, and thereafter further south the international border carries on. Next. Now this is the area of the north of the Great Himalayas. If you see in the area of Baltistan, the famous areas of Gilgit, Astor, Skardu, Kapalu, these are the areas north of the LC, and further down you can see the areas of Kargil and Drass. Next. Now the primary task of 8 Mountain Div in this area was to ensure the sanctity of the LC and ensure that no violence takes place from across the line of control. Now, some of the intrusions that took place during 99, if you see the red line, that is the National Highway 1 Alpha, and the purple line indicates the LC. Next. 4th of May, 9 to 10 intruders were seen east of Batalik. On the 8th of May, there was a patrol clash east of Batalik. 10 to 14th May, a number of intruders were seen in Mashko, Drass, Kaksar, and north of the valley. Now the sector-wise intrusions, I will indicate here. There were two NLI and one Frontier Force battalion in the area of Mashko, 3 NLI battalions intruded in the area of Drass, 1 battalion in the area of Kaksar, and almost 5 battalions in the area of Batalik. Now, these are the chronology of events which we will cover subsequently. Now, we will start from Kargil westwards towards the east, where we had this Batalik area. Now, the Batalik sector was commanded by Brigadier Devinder, and he is, it's a very difficult sector. The lines of communication are long, and it's very difficult to really, as far as logistics is concerned, as far as fetching up of your normal ammunition and rations, etc., concerned, are rather difficult. And the fire support was a problem in the initial stages. Now, I'll request Brigadier Devinder to cover the area of Batalik, and he will give you an insight as to how exactly the battles were run in this area. Brigadier Devinder.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as brought out by the chairperson, Batalik was an isolated sector. It was away from this main battlefield of Drass and Mashko, well into the interior, but as we go into the interior, we are going up the hills, and therefore it was about 3,000 to 4,000 feet higher than what Drass and Mashko were. And this area was totally devoid of any infrastructure. There were no roads, there were no tracks, there was no infrastructure at all. And we were away from the road that supports the Indus River and the fighting area was about, minimum was about 5 kilometers ahead. That means 1 to 2 days of night walk. And we had to fight the entire operation on our manpack for the initial part of the operations, and then some mules and the Army Aviation Corps came to our assistance, and we could then take on the logistics part of it. So if you notice that on the slide which is there, if you look at it, what is Shangruti written there, and the arrows Jubbar, Khalubar and Chor Batla. So that is the sector which really signifies Batalik sector. So this is the area from here up till this area. So these were thrust lines, and as brought out by the chairperson, there were almost elements of 5 battalions, enemy battalions which had come in this area. By my estimate, it was 800 regulars, but there were varying estimates, maybe about 400 and above there. So this was the kind of area we are there. I'll now take you on to the next slide. Again, this area compared to Drass and Mashko, which is here, this is the area which was intruded upon. And from here, the line of control takes a sharp turn towards the north. And what is interesting is that this area here is a watershed whereby you cannot cross over from this area of Batalik into Turtuk. You cannot cross over, except for a very small area at Chorbatla. And this is where the initial action took place. I'll come to that, which we had to secure. And that was the only crossing place from where you can step from this side to this side. Otherwise, you have to come all the way from here to Leh, go in and go via, Khardungla Pass onto Turtuk, which is a 2 days driving time, So that was the compartmentalization that was there, and therefore this area of complete Batalik and Chorbatla was the area of responsibility which 70th Infantry Brigade was entrusted with. I will now come into a bit of a historical aspect. This area completely, that is from Chorbatla westwards up to Zujila Pass, belonged to 121 Infantry Brigade, which was covered earlier, of 3 Infantry Division, out of which 8 Division, 56 Brigade came in first, and then the balance of 8 Division came in, and they took on Drass and Mashko. Kaksar remained, and Kargil was with the 121 Infantry Brigade, and Batalik came to 70th Infantry Brigade. 70th Infantry Brigade was also in the Kashmir Valley. It had come up as a floating headquarters back to this area in November 98, but we had no troops because the pass, Zila Pass, had closed. So when we reached, we could at best employ ourselves by doing war games and other familiarizing with our tasks and hoping for the Zujila Pass to open on the middle of May, that is 99, so that the battalions, 2 of the battalions which I had left behind in the Kashmir Valley, they could come up and one could then take on a worthwhile task in this area. While waiting for this, the intrusion was reported on 3rd of May, and unknown to me, I was in Srinagar trying to do some homework on the National Highway Management, and 7th May it was confirmed, and I got a message on the 7th of May that to meet at Kargil along with Brigadier Surinder Singh, who was the 121 Infantry Brigade Commander, saying that the background is that the intrusions have been confirmed and we have to deal with these intrusions. So met with General Budwar, who was the GOC Free Infantry Division, and he says, I have a choice, either you take over Drass and Mashko, which was earlier the plan, and Surinder takes on now the Kargil and Batalik, whereas after some discussion we said that will not be right to disturb him. He's a well-settled holding brigade commander, holding the line of control, well established with his battalions. So therefore the Batalik intrusion came to me, but the question was I had no troops. So I said the promise was that troops will follow, you move. So with 1 jeep and 1 ton, one moved to one of the battalions of 121 Infantry Brigade, which was in Batalik, 3 Punjab, and tried to glean and whatever knowledge I could about this area and area of responsibility. So this was on 8th of May. 9th of May, apart from some recce, etc., and listening to wireless intercepts, aviation recce, one was released 2 infantry battalions. These 2 infantry battalions were coming down from the Siachen, 111 GR and 12 Jackalai. But the difficult part was that these 2 battalions were 1/3 of their strength, because any battalion that comes down from Siachen has a big lead party that goes. It has a big advance party that goes to take over the new location, and they hand over all the essential stores for the next unit that is coming in, which are known as the sector stores. So those stores remain, so like winter clothing, etc. So these battalion was at about 1/3 the strength. This was made available, and by the time they became effective, they reached me. It was about 11th of May, but they were totally, like I said, not in a fit position to fight as such. But I could then, this was my only resource at that time, so I pushed them in the area of here Khalubar. I pushed them in the center and said, at least go and see where the enemy is, because there was no way of knowing where the enemy is. For your information, between 3rd May, when the intrusion was detected, the holding brigade, 121 Infantry Brigade, had sent in 2 patrols which got ambushed. by these intruders. So, but we didn't have any information on where the patrols were, how badly are they ambushed, what is the recovery status. So all that had to be done. So these two battalions then took it upon themselves, and then the procedure of occupying the sector began. Next. So this is now the layout of the area, which I'll explain. It's the enlarged version of what you saw there. Starting from the left, there is this Shaina Nala running from Batalik. There's the Jubbar ridgeline. Then there is the Kukarthang ridgeline. Then there is the Khaluwa ridgeline. And then there's the 0.520 ridgeline. And then this is, of course, the Chorbatla area. Now, we were here at Dha. Batalik was earlier occupied. All this area totally was unoccupied. You have to understand that to hold ground, you need troops, you need resources, you need communications, that means roads, tracks, etc. None of them was in this area. So it was considered that this area will not be operationally worthwhile for the enemy to develop operations from, this is the line of control, from Pakistan occupied Kashmir to this side. It was considered that this area is not operationally viable for them to develop a major thrust. As such, it was left unoccupied, and only occasional patrolling used to be done. But somehow in that period, the first intrusions, they came in across this area. This is a bowl here, Munthodalo, and from here they occupied this ridgeline, and they occupied Kukarthang, they occupied Jubbar, and also some portion of Chorbatla here. So with this situation that confronted us, we were said that we have to, clear up this sector. It was a daunting task, and the problem was that if you went into one valley here, or you went into this Chana Nala here, it used to take you 4 to 5 days to come back to this center point. You could not communicate, or you could not move right to left. You could not even communicate with radio sets, because our radio sets in the infantry battalions are very high frequency, which have a screening effect because of direct line of sight. So if that was the problem. So there were major logistical and operational nightmare that we were accosted with, coupled with no resources or limited resources or piecemeal resources. Also the charter or the mandate given to us was that 70 Brigade will get its resources from within 3 Infantry Division. And 3 Infantry Division, which was already in this area, was overstretched. They had no resources of their own. They were trying to pull out one Ladakh company, a battalion, company from Southern Glacier, a company from somewhere else. As a result, what you were getting was piecemeal. And piecemeal was not the answer for this area. You needed strength of about 7 to 8 battalions to really do the job, but they were not available ab initio. So therefore, all your thinking, all your operational planning, all your how to go about was dependent on the piecemeal availability of troops that were being made available to you, and how best you can do with them. Next. So as mentioned here, it's a disconnected and compromised subsectors away from the national highway with no radio intercommunication, devoid of roads and tracks, entire sector on manpack and later mule basis, come Army aviation support, which was a big, big help there. Piecemeal availability of troops and heterogeneous mix of the units. I'll come to this aspect that finally we built up from 0 to 11 infantry battalions in a matter of 50 days. Terrain limitations, restricted deployment of artillery guns. The space here is very little. Unlike what you saw and you heard, may have heard, in Drass, the artillery guns could see the target and they could fire. Here, all the artillery guns had to fire almost in high angle. Unless they were firing from Humbatingla and some other areas from far away, when there was a problem of accuracy and other aspects. So, therefore, there was a problem that high angle has its own problems. The rate of fire, etc., cannot be as sustained, as effective, and as accurate as done with low angle or direct fire. Then was that there's hardly any media. I won't say hardly any, there was no media at all. Only 2 media people throughout the entire war landed up for 2 days with a specific mission to cover some specific aspects. That is all. Otherwise, this area went secluded totally. So, if you have not heard of Batalik sector, you find a mention of it, but then we'll now go on to certain aspects of Batalik sector, where you'll find the results were far spectacular, and this sector somehow got cleared even before the Drass and Mashko sectors. How this was done, I'll just cover it for you. Next. So let's take the sequence of events. 3rd May, intrusion is detected, patrol clashes. 7th May, 8th May, 70 Brigade, less troops is given the task. 11th May, elements of 2 half-strength battalions are inducted. Now the irony is that's made available, ready to do the job. But the battalions which came were less than 300 strength, with no weaponry, no equipment, no radio sets, etc. Right? But that was the actual state. Then the enemy, but between the 11th and 9th June, significant progress was made. We then went on to a modified system, unlike Drass and Mashko sector, whereby moment we were accosted with major enemy intrusion in front, we realized that we didn't have the strength and the capability to overcome it. So we decided to bypass it. And I'll come to that plan of action once I revert back to the terrain slide there, how it was done there. But sufficient to say that we bypassed it and kept on bypassing till we almost encircled the enemy. And by end of May, the first action was taken by Sonam Wangchuk. He captured, like I said, but from our sector to the Siachen Brigade sector, there was a small area in Chorbatla, which was very critical, which if the enemy had captured, our interconnectivity with Siachen Brigade would have been cut off. That is the area with a small body of troops, 40 troops. Between 29th and 31st May, he did that. And thank you, Sonam Wangchuk. He's sitting amongst us there, and our great thanks to him. There, along with him, the rest of the nalas, which we talked about, the China Nala, the Junglungpa, others, we had gone inside and reached the watershed, and therefore we had encircled the kind of enemy, but such that he could not come down and we could not go up. But thereby, what we started doing was we had started denying him the water resources. And this did not pay us a dividend initially in the month of May, but in the month of June onwards, we started paying out dividends because the snow on top had started melting, and normally for water on the top of the peaks or in the area where the enemy had come in, you need water, and water was got by melting snow. But the snow there was also not adequately available, and whatever was there, because of the shelling, was getting contaminated. So that was a kind of a help to us, indirect help, not visualized to say that we were brilliant enough to visualize it in the beginning. No, it was just an added benefit to us, which accrued there. So with this setting, we had a visit on 10th of June by the Chief of Army Staff, and that is the time he asked us what is your assessment of the situation, and there's a varying difference. The higher headquarters were feeling that there are still few very militants, and we are saying there were almost 800, 600 to 800 Northern Light Infantry, and by that time, just after that, we managed to capture the POWs. By the way, the maximum POWs that were captured, 6 out of the 8 were captured in Batalik sector, and I'll show you some photographs of that also later there. So they give us very valuable information where the deployment was and what was. So we knew that what we are accosted with is a substantially well-set enemy. And then moment the Chief of Staff, Army Staff went, the only point I had with him was that we needed more troops and we needed fresh troops. So he said, I'll do my best. And but soon the resources started coming in, and very soon we cleared, and we'll cover that plan by Gopa's slide. We covered our eastern flank. Then we did a multi-pronged attack with 6 battalions from 3rd to 9th July. And by 9th July, Batalik was cleared. Whereas the Kargil War came to an end on 26th July. That is why Kargil Vijay Diwas is done on 26th July. But Batalik was cleared by 9th of July. All features had been captured by 5th of July. Then there was a race for 4 days going on to the line of control. So after covering the operation, I'll just dwell on a few brain teasers to understand, because yesterday you saw film also. whereby it is said that 4th of July a meeting took place between Clinton and Nawaz Sharif. But now try and relate that, date plan with this. 5th July, all our features are captured. 4th July, a meeting has taken place in between Nawaz and Clinton. Those you have heard the other speakers also. Musharraf and Nawaz Sharif are not on the best of the same line of thinking. Nawaz Sharif wanted to pull back, but Musharraf said, sorry, I'm very comfortable, I'll carry on. So if any journalist tells you that on 4th of July they met and Pakistani withdrawal started following thereafter, it's a misnomer. It took 2 days to make out that discussion points from the meeting, and by the time he came back, he then had to convince Musharraf that we are going to be in trouble, let's decide to commit ourselves to pulling back. Musharraf still did not agree. But by that time, on 5th of July, even Tiger Hill had been captured. So Tololing had been captured on 15, 13, 14 June. Before that, Chorbatla had been captured. Tiger Hill had been captured on 5th of July in the Drass sector. And here we had captured Khalubar, 4812, etc. All our features we had captured by 5th of July. And we were on the line of control on 9th of July. On 9th of July, Musharraf had no choice but to then see the light of the day and realize that there is a problem. So they agreed for a ceasefire from the 12th of July onwards. In between, something else happened to further convince Musharraf. And that is a very interesting point. Moment we reached the line of control on the 9th of July, we were rushing. We didn't have enough wherewithal to protect the line of control, because we were just after capturing Khalubar, 4812, etc. We were just rushing to reach the line of control. On reaching there, to our horror, we found that Pakistan had rushed in their Rawalpindi brigade, which is their coup brigade, and their elite brigade, with 2 battalions, 33 Frontier Force and 4 Frontier Force there, to recapture the line of control, because Pakistan was worried that we may use this area to get into Pakistan, and contrary to Bajpayee's promise, we may cross the line of control. So therefore they had rushed in these troops, and they were going to counterattack our boys, who were not prepared. They had reached the line of control, but they were not, the defended locality was not ready. So that is the time our boys, especially 5 Para and Brigadier Karyappa, who is the NSG commander nowadays in Delhi, he asked for what are save our souls, that is fire on ourselves. And that is the time the bomb was fired, and to such a devastating effect that 33 Frontier Force lost, they had 45 casualties. And 4 Frontier Force on another objective had 23 casualties. Now these casualties were different. Mark my words here, what I'm saying. These casualties really hurt Pakistan. Why? Because these were Punjabi Musliman casualties. They had been rushed in from Rawalpindi. So far the narrative that something is happening with Northern Light Infantry. Northern Light Infantry had come from remote areas.
One more minute, please.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Northern Infantry had come from remote areas. So therefore, really, story was not reaching the rest of Pakistan. But when these body bags went home on 10th of July, then the realization set in, and the 12th of July onwards, they agreed for a ceasefire, which we then did not agree from 14th July onwards, etc. So this is it, right? Next. So, next. In the end, gentlemen, I like to say that the sacrifice of the young officers and this thing, like Manoj Pandey, 111 GR, Sonam here and others, was the key role that played this thing. What I have given you is only a visualization of how we went about and did our task at a slightly higher level. Next. These are some of the snapshots. You realize that this is the way we were. This is the prisoner talking. Why is he talking? Because he realized he's from Frontier Force. He could not have been saved, but we had to carry him for 4 days back, and therefore he's grateful that his life has been saved. So that is there. This is with all the CO 111, CO 5 Para there after we had reached the line of control. Next. Here is Batalik cleared. This is, if you noticed, July 9th, Hindustan Times. So it was very clear by 9th of July, Batalik was cleared. Right? The war was over for us. Next. This is by about 13th, 14th July. The compliments have started coming into 70 Brigade for their actions. Next. Next. This was later, of course. Next. So these are two extracts from the books. You can continue reading them. That Batalik sector under 70 Brigade did a major contribution, but somehow it was away from the national highway for whatever other reasons. It has never got the light of the day, and none of you would have ever heard of it, or it is seldom covered. With that, I'd like to end. Thank you.
Thank you, Devinder, for a very comprehensive presentation of the Batalik operations. And you would, gentlemen and boys and girls, you would realize that it was an operation in the Batalik sector which was very, very difficult. And the manner in which it was conducted under the tutelage of Brigadier Devinder needs a lot of accolades, because it was really not highlighted as much as it should have been during the Kargil operations. Now coming on to the west of Kargil, we come on to the Drass sector. Now my brigade, I was commanding 56th Mountain Brigade. We came on the 13th of May to Drass, and the information that we had was that there are a couple of militants on the heights. They're nothing more than that, and that they would be cleared once I take over the Drass and Mashko sectors. And my task was initially to capture Tololing. I'll come to Tololing a little later. So the first thing was that I had come with one battalion. We were operating under counterinsurgency operations in the valley, and they had to be adjusted to conventional operations. They needed to be acclimatized. They needed to carry out recce and things like that. So therefore, it would take approximately 8 to 10 days for them to get on to doing their operational work. And we did not have animal transport. We did not have porters. We had to adjust ourselves as to how we should go about it. So therefore, we started off sometimes on the 23rd of May and cleared the ridge lines. If you see this sketch, extreme right is the feature of Tololing. So it has ridge lines to the east and west of it, which had to be cleared. We cleared the ridge lines, and by the end of the month, we were able to come 300 meters as close to Tololing as possible. We tried to launch counterattacks, but they were not successful since the top of Tololing was very strongly held. And on the 1st of June, we came under command 8 Mountain Div, and that is the time when I had to tell General Puri that we need more forces, we need more firepower to carry on with these operations. Therefore, it took us about 10 to 12 days to get fresh troops for the capture of Tololing, and firepower, a lot of boffer guns, and were required, because we had just about 5 fire units in the initial stages. And we had 2 Rajrif, which came in. As far as the ridgelines were concerned, they were cleared by 18 grenadiers, and we decided to launch the operations on 12th of May. Now, 12th of May being a Friday, we decided to launch it not on a Friday but on a Saturday, because Tololing. I'll just next slide, please. Now, this is Tololing. You see the Bimbat Nala on the right, and this is Tololing. It's just about 5 kilometers from Drass, so close. Unlike Batalik sector, which was very much deep inside, away from the national highway, we were just about 5 kilometers from Drass, and he was looking onto us and shelling us on a daily basis. This is the manner in which now we had to launch a frontal assault, because he had covered his flanks, he had covered his rear, and he could get his reinforcements from point 5140, and therefore, in order to divert his attention, we utilized one Naga from the northern areas, from the northern side, to divert his attention so that we could finally get on to Tololing. And of course, the firm base was being held by 18 grenadiers, and 2 Rajref was assigned to capture Tololing. So with about 120 guns on the 13th of May, the kind of firepower that is required in the hills is extensive, and the combat ratio that is required for launching attacks is also very high. Generally we use it as 1:3, but in the case of mountains, we go to the extent of 1:9. And that is how this attack was launched, and we captured Tololing on the 14th of June, early morning. Next. Now, if you see this feature, you can see point 5140 very clearly written there. And ahead of Tololing was a feature, a small little hump. So which we assigned, I assigned 18 grenadiers to capture this hump. But unfortunately, during the evening, they came under observation of the enemy, and they were shelled, and they had a number of casualties. The CO spoke to me on the radio saying that we need to postpone the attack by 24 hours since he had a number of casualties. So I had to take a decision. I said, no, you will launch the attack. We will look after the casualties. 2 Rajrif is there. They will bring them down. So then we launched the attack on Hump the next night, and we were able to capture Hump by early morning. So this is how Tololing was captured, and it was not an easy task. It took us a long time. 18 grenadiers was on the ridge lines and on to Tololing for almost 1 month before we finally got fresh troops and were able to capture Tololing on 14th of June. Thereafter, 2 Rajrif was relieved, and I got a fresh battalion, 13 Jackrif, who took on subsequent operations like Rocky Knob, 5140 and 4875. I will now ask K Joshi to cover the Rocky Knob and 5140 and 4875 as to how they went about it. It was not an easy task, but a very difficult task, and I'd request him to.
Good morning, children. It's a pleasure to be here, to be speaking to all of you, the future of the nation. So I'll very briefly, next 10-12 minutes or so, cover the operations of my battalion, 13 Jack Rifles, the bravest of the brave. So before the Kargil War started, 13 Jack Rifles was deployed in Sopore, doing counter-insurgency operations in the valley. We had finished our tenure. We'd done about 2 years, and we were looking to move to a peace station. And I, as the second in command of the battalion, had already moved to the peace station in a place called Shahjahanpur, close to Lucknow, with the advance party. So while I was there in Shahjahanpur, Kargil happened. So my battalion, which was still there in Sopore, was inducted, across the Zojila Pass to a place called Gumri in Ladakh, and they started the acclimatization for the impending operations of Operation Vijay, or the Kargil War as we call it. While I was there in Shahjahanpur, we got orders that please, hand over back everything and move back and join your battalion. So overnight, we were moved to Chandigarh, put into a IL-76 and flown to Srinagar. So 10th of June, from Srinagar, we crossed the Zojila Pass and joined the battalion. I reached Gumri and joined the battalion there. Battalion already been acclimatizing there for about 4-5 days. 11th of June, I'm trying to explain to you how fast things happen when the situation so demands. So 10th of June I reached Gumri. 11th of June we were placed under command 56th Mountain Brigade, that time commanded by Brigade Amar Aul, to be reserved to 2 Rajire for the capture of Tololing. 12th of June, from Gumri we moved to Drass, and 13th of June I was sitting on top of Tololing. 5 days from Shahjahanpur, where I was in a peace station, swimming pool, open air theatre, going to restaurants, having my meals with the family. And on the 5th day, I was sitting on top of Tololing, where there was heavy artillery shelling going on, machine gun fire coming from point 5140. And, the first thing that struck me when I reached there and met CO-18 Grenadiers, Colonel Kushal Thakur on top of Tololing, on the night of 13th-14th, I saw around me about 8 to 9, mortal remains of the soldiers of 18 Grenadiers who had died the same night in artillery shelling, which General Amar Aul was just talking about. And as I was trying to digest the situation that was unfolding around me, my first impact of Operation Vijay, my radio operator came running to me and says, "Ki Sahab, aapse General Mohinderpuri aapse baat karna chahte hain, the General Officer Commanding." And he came on the radio set and said, "Ki jo your CO has taken ill, please put on your pips, you are the commanding officer." So that's how the situation was changing so fast for me in battle. Becoming the commanding officer of a battalion in battle is a huge challenge, because till now I was the second in command, listening to the orders of my commanding officer, and the buck stopped at him. But now, as a commanding officer, I would have to start planning the operations, and on my orders, the companies would be launching assault and laying down their lives for the battalion. So you can imagine the challenge, that came to me in the midst of the battle. Having said that, after that, the battalion, went on and launched 4 attacks and captured 2 the most strategically important features in the Drass and the Mashkovali subsector, point 5140 in the Drass subsector on the Tololing Ridge, and point 4875 in the Mashkovali subsector. And of course, we went on to earn 2 Param Vir Chakras, 8 Vir Chakras, 14 Sena medals, a total of 37 gallantry awards, including the Bravest of the Brave and the unit citation. Coming further from there, talking about the terrain, so this is my photograph when I was in battle. I have brought it here just to show you the impact of the weather and terrain and climate, on the soldier. How sunburned you get when you open to the, vagaries of the weather and climate at those altitudes. Talking more about the terrain, while we have spoken a little bit about terrain yesterday, but 2-3 things what I want to flag to you is that, sub-zero temperatures, glaciated terrain, high altitude areas, 14 to 18,000 feet, lack of oxygen. That is the area we were carrying out operations. I mean, we can talk about that in the question and answer session, but it was a huge challenge. The other aspect that I want to bring out is that there was not a blade of grass for cover. Infantry, when you move, you need some cover. And second is that we launch attacks, along the spur lines. And you can see in this photo point 5140. So this is 5140, the left extreme. Then you have the Rocky Knob, Hump Complex, and Tololing, about which General Amar Aul just spoke about. So 5140 dominated about 30 to 40 kilometers of the National Highway 1 Alpha. This was the place from where the Stinger missiles were fired and one of our choppers was shot down. And this dominated the area of Tololing and also the village of Drass down below. Therefore, the importance of capturing 5140. This was the plan, again already explained by General Aul. Now, after the area of Hump was captured, the area of Rocky Knob, was where 13 Jackraft first came in. This was captured during a day attack, but it was captured, over a period of 2 days, wherein we could not get success because at Rocky Knob, the enemy had put a heavy machine gun, a 14.7 mm machine gun, which I'll show you later, and that was interfering in all our movement. And we tried a lot of innovations to, bring down the area of Rocky Knob. We fired rocket launchers, didn't work because they were big boulders. We fired rocket launchers in the airburst role, didn't work. We fired anti-tank missiles, it didn't work. Then I spoke to Brigadier then Amar Aul, the commander, and explained to him the situation. And then he, along with General Lakhwinder here, the RT Brigade commander then, they got one Bofors gun, where they could get a straight line of sight to the area of Rocky Knob. And then he handed over the gun to me, and I controlled the fire. And within 2 or 3 rounds, we were able to, bring 2 rounds onto the area of Rocky Knob and destroyed it completely. And that is where, we launched a daylight attack, and we were able to capture the area of Rocky Knob. That was the devastating effect of the Bofors firing in the direct firing role. It was a turning point, actually, in the Kargil War. Having captured the area of Rocky Knob on the 17th, 2 days, 18th and 19th, we did our recce and planning for capture of point 5140, where you can see the left Sangar and the right Sangar on top. So we didn't want to attack frontally. I sent 2 of my company commanders, Vikram Batra and Jamwal, both young lieutenants, less than 2 years service, on the flanks to carry out a reconnaissance, to find a route. By the evening, they came back and told me there's no way we can, launch attack from the flanks. We'll have to go frontally. And what I observed in the entire day of 17th and 18th was that, we could see just these 2 Sangars and some movement of the enemy in these areas. So based on that, we made a plan that Bravo Company will skirt to the left under Jamwal and capture the area of left Sangar. And on the right, Delta Company under Captain Vikram Batra would go straight up and capture the area of the right Sangar. They will, join up there. And then, depending upon what else was there on top, we'll have to take the operations further. So we had, 21 fire units, we call, of artillery in support of this attack, which is over 120 guns. So 20th, when we launched the attack, 120 guns fired onto this feature, and this whole area was full of explosives. And I, sitting in the area of Rocky Knob, observing this area, thought that probably there will be no enemy alive, once we launched the attack. But the enemy was also smart. Everybody does his planning, and they had made reverse slope positions behind this. And the effect of RT had little effect on them, in the reverse slope position. And the moment we started moving and launching the attack, the enemy came back and occupied the positions on top, and they started bringing down heavy fire onto us. But that notwithstanding, both the company commanders leading from the front reached the top, and early morning we were able to capture the area of point 5140. And this is the place where Vikram Batra, came on the radio set and gave me the success signal, which was Ye Dil Mange More, which you are all heard about, I'm sure, and seen the movie Sher Shah as well. And this is a photograph on top of point 5140 with both the company commanders, Vikram Batra and Jamwal, to my left and to my right. And this is the, 14.5 mm, which I was talking about, which was in the area of Rocky Knob. Vikram Batra in this photograph is explaining to the media when we captured it. This is a very unique photograph, on top of Tololing. Vikram Batra being promoted to captain, on top of Tololing. A very, very rare photograph. Okay, so after we finished the capture of point 5140, we were inducted, went back to Gumri for a 10-day rest and refit. And the next task that was given to us was the capture of point 4875 as part of 79 Mountain Brigade this time. And again, 4875 was a very dominating feature. You can see on top here, behind us, you can see the red line, which is National Highway 1 Alpha, and 4875, this is from the top, dominated 30 to 40 kilometers of the National Highway 1 Alpha, both sides. This is towards Drass, and that was, across the Pandras Ridge. So again, the importance of capturing, and the importance of 4875 was realized by the enemy also, and they held it very, very strongly. So the brigade plan was something like this: 79 Brigade, 13 Jackraft to capture the top, 17 Jat on the left to capture the Wheelback and Pimple complex, in phase 1, and later in phase 2, 2 Naga was to go behind and capture the area of Twin Bumps. Again, about 21 fire units in fire support. We launched the attack on the 4th of July. But this time the terrain was much more difficult, much more steeper, and the movement was slow. We were to capture it by first light, before the sunrise came up on the 5th of July, but it did not happen, because the enemy fire coming and the movement being slow, we got daylighted, very close to the top. And that is the time the company commander of Charlie Company, Major Gurpreet, he spoke to me on the radio set. I was in the fire base and told me, sir, this is the place from where the enemy fire is coming and we need to do something. We are suffering a lot of casualties in daylight. Now, our troops were so close to the enemy bunkers that I could not have, used artillery at that time. Otherwise, we would have inflicted casualties on our own soldiers using our own RT. So we had, again, anti-tank missiles, Faggot this time, which were there in the fire base. We fired 2 missiles straight onto the bunker. The bunker got destroyed. We got a feedback that, there's been casualties on the enemy side. And I conveyed that to the company commander. And that is the time Sanjay, who was the leading scout of Charlie Company, closest to the enemy bunker, taking advantage of the situation, along with his section, he launched the assault while he got badly shot up. But he captured the first bunker, and then using the enemy machine gun, he captured a second bunker. And that gave us, the foothold immediately. Charlie Company and Alpha Company from the side both went up, and we were able to capture the top. And with this action, Sanjay, earned him his Param Vir Chakra. This is Sanjay, you all have met him. And this is how his citation read. While he was badly injured, he continued to assault, and we were able to capture the area of .4875. But the situation now is we have reached the top, but we realized that just from the top of 4875, there was a small ledge going ahead, about 50 meters, and on the other side of the ledge, there was again the enemy sitting, and there was no way to circumvent it. For 2 days, 5th of July and 6th of July, we were so close that our troops in front were abusing each other. And this is the place, if you all have seen the movie LOC Kargil, the enemy, shouted at us, ke saathi humko Madhuri Dixit de do, wapas chale jayenge. And they were throwing grenades at us, and our troops, we were so close that catching the grenades and throwing them back before they could explode, because we were in very close proximity. It takes about 6 seconds for the grenade to explode, and within those 6 seconds, we could catch the grenades and throw it back onto the enemy. So that is the kind of battle that happened for 2 days. On the 7th of July, 3rd day, early morning, Captain Naveen, who was the closest, in the closest sangar to the enemy, he got badly injured. And Vikram Batra, who was the Delta Company 2IC, the Reserve Company 2IC, moved in and he evacuated, Captain Naveen Anaberu. After having evacuated him, I can only visualize what went into his mind, that there he realized that since there's no way to circumvent and this is the only way to assault, he, on an impulse, with his AK-47, just charged the enemy frontally on that ledge. And while, firing with his AK-47...
One more minute, please.
Right. He killed, 4 to 5 Pakistanis, but in the bargain, he also got shot and he laid down his life, but not before, giving us the foothold, and we were able to capture .4875 completely, but at the loss of a brave soldier. And for this action, Captain Vikram Batra was awarded the Param Vir Chakra, of course, posthumously. These are the kind of recoveries we made from .4875, and on the 7th of July, we had the complete .4875 in the control of the Indian Army. Thank you.
Thank you, Yogesh, for a very interesting presentation of 5140 and 4875. Now, boys and girls, I will go on to the very famous operations that took place for the capture of Tiger Hill. If you see in the background, that is Tiger Hill. It's a very imposing feature which dominates the Drass sector and the National Highway 1 Alpha. Next. If you see here, Tiger Hill, it has got on the eastern side the eastern spur. On the west side, you can see the southern spur and .4460. And you see a nala which is running down further south of it. Okay, next. Now this was the plan that we made at least about 10 days before we decided, because if you notice on the western side where India Gate and all is written, or further south of it, it's a gradual spur which leads on to Tiger Hill. And that was being occupied by 8 Sikh, which was holding ground there. And that was the most likely approach that the enemy visualized that we would come. So we decided to go on the most difficult approach in order to capture Tiger Hill. So if you notice there on the green arrow, we took the most difficult approach where Charlie Company, the commando platoon, we decided to take the top first. And that is where Grenadier Yogendra Yadav, you've heard of him, and Lieutenant Balwant Singh with their Ghatak platoon or commando platoon climbed up in the hours of darkness and surprised the enemy on top. Of course, there was a hand-to-hand fight. Grenadier Yadav got badly injured, but yet they did not give up and finally were able to take the top. Now this surprised the enemy considerably. Now he was being reinforced from the area of Helmet, Tongue, that area, and that is the time when 8 Sikh was launched to take on India Gate, where you can see this. And that is how it took a long time. We had a lot of casualties, and this is the place where Pakistan had employed SSG units. We killed an SSG officer who was later returned to Pakistan. His body was returned. And this is the place, once India Gate was captured, then he had no other option but to vacate Tiger Hill. It took us a long time. We commenced operations on 4th of July, and it took us almost a week. By the time we could clear the entire Tiger Hill, it was 11th of July. And that was something, a great feat, which was done by 18 grenadiers and 8 Sikh. And of course, wherever we are, where we've talked about the Batalik sector, we've talked about 5140, Tololing, Tiger Hill, 4875. It's not alone as far as the infantry is concerned that does this job. We cannot do this job without firepower. And that is what is most relevant in these cases. Unless we have fire support, it's very difficult to progress operations and capture objectives. So thanks a lot for the RT firepower that we had, which we were able to create at that point of time, starting from almost nix in the earlier stages of the war, and finally we were able to achieve what we wanted to achieve and throw the enemy out. I will now ask General Lakhwinder to touch upon the RT aspects. May I request you to take just a few minutes so that we can get the question answers, and then probably most of the questions will be on artillery. May I, sir?
Ladies and gentlemen, and very brave students who've been listening to a boring talk for so long. So I will try and tell you very briefly what the artillery did. I'll tell you from the story and relate to the context of history, what we did. You saw a movie yesterday, and 40% of the movie was only artillery. That was the importance of artillery. And did not come by just because artillery guns were there. It came after a lot of thought, and what we did for the Kargil and Batalik sector that the infantry was able to walk up there and fight the war. You know, if you go back to history, the First World War, it was a war of trench warfare. The Second World War, it was a revolution of mechanized warfare. And now, in this stage today, it's a firepower warfare. It happened in Kargil. I'm happy with the pioneers of it. It's happened in Ukraine. It's happened in Ukraine. It happened in Iraq War, and now it's happening in Palestine and Israel. It's a firepower which is making the waves. The contact war is getting less and less important, and firepower getting the main importance. You saw the movie. I'll give you a small script to get your mind back to what artillery does. Please show the script. Just to get your mind back on artillery, artillery is not a direct-firing weapon. Please appreciate that. Artillery always fires over the horizon. So you can't see a target, but there's an observer to see the target and guide the firepower on that. Artillery has been important not of recent time. It's been important since the cusp of 17th, 18th century, when King Louis XIV of France, one of the most handsomest king, and also a great man of art, he also loved his forces. On every cannon of his, he got inscribed an Italian verse that the artillery is the last word of king. Beyond this, there's no discussion. And then, 150 years later, Stalin, when he came after the Second World War, he said, artillery is the king of god of war. It was true. And Kargil, it was proven more than this, the artillery played a very vital role to make sure that we won our heights back. How did we do it? Again, it's a matter of history. When we went there, the things were not so good, so we went back, our mind went back to history, and we realized that at the time of Babur and Ranjit Singh, they had cannons, small cannons, they put them in the face of the enemy and fire it, and very effectively. So we realized if they could do it, why can't we fire a very, very updated gun like this for longer distances? So experimented. We took 2 Bofors guns, 2 field guns on Tololing Heights. Amar Aul was a brigade commander. He joined us to experiment. We chose a bunker on top of Tololing called Bulwark bunker. The bunker caused maximum damage to Grenadier boys. And the best man on the driver's seat, he fired at them. The first one fell close to it, and a couple of next rounds, the bunker was hit squarely on the dot. And we could hear the enemy shout, "Hame bachao, yahan par कहर बरस रहा है." We realized that this is of great value to us, and we had converted a dumb ammunition to a smart ammunition. This was to play a great role. They're saying by Shiv Arun, he said, one weapon had never turned a war, but if the weapon would become a game-changing factor, it was Bofors. It changed the war. It is so important. Not to say the other artillery fire weapon did not fire. Other weapons, guns also played a very important role. Gentlemen, artillery covers a large area. A battery with 6 guns covers 250 or 250 meters is equal to 7 football fields. A regiment covers 450 meters is equivalent to 20 football fields. So that's the type of area that we cover. So what we decided was that unless we do something out of box, this infantry will never be able to walk up and reach there to fight the war. They may be brave, but it could be futile. So we start a concept of 100-gun concept, which will fire at each point 100 guns, so that we throw a TNT equivalent to a mini nuke. So enemy is totally pulverized, nasto nabood kar denge usko, and the infantry will go and walk up there. And then to bring them closer to the enemy, we put that Bofors guns in direct firing weapon, direct firing role, and they brought our own infantry with handshake distance of the enemy. Eyeball contact. So that is how the infantry was able to reach there with less casualties. Without going too much details, I'll tell you 2-3 incidents, very important incidents. One was that Joshi said they attacked a place called Rocky area at daytime. If you go to these hills, I can assure you, even angels fear to tread those hills at night under fire. They wouldn't go there. But this out-of-box thinking and this bold decision was backed by the Beaufort guns. And then when it reached point 5140, it was pulverized. They went, fought and occupied it. It also happened in other place, Marpula, on 2 wings when they were caught up, again the Beauforts came into play. Enabled them to capture those, destroy those things, and they captured them. Tiger Hill, the most famous part. Tiger Hill when it started, it was raining a bit. When 18 grenades reached halfway, they lost the way. They lost the navigation. So GOC with me, next to me in the command post said, do something. Again, we got to Beauforts, started right on the pinnacle on top, and they were able to navigate. They reached the top. And in the morning, when the CO 18 grenades reported that we are on top of Tiger Hill, the GOC was very happy. He said, Lakhwinder, we've done it again. The infantry has walked slung arms to Tiger Hill. So this is the role that artillery played. 2 important things. Artillery causes 82% casualties in war. And in every attack operation, your casualty is in the ratio of 1:3 in planes, maybe 1:6 in altitude area, and as Amar Aul was saying, 1:9. If you apply more, you lose more. But at the end of a day, we suffered lesser casualties than the Pakistanis. We suffered 525 casualties, they suffered 727 casualties. If you go by mathematics formula, for every casualty, they suffered 6 casualties, we suffered 4,200 casualties. No, sir, we suffered 525 casualties, and we're very happy to send live human beings back to mothers and fathers to meet them and enjoy their work and victory. This was not over. And when at the end of the war, when 8 RT division was told to take defensive position, they were in the open, and we were in Kargil sector, moved from Drass to Kargil. We were totally in open. Artillery was firing on us, and the brigade commanders told the GOC in a conference, give us each battery each, we can fire at them. I said, let me handle it. I said, you are in open, if you fire, they'll fire back at you, you'll get more casualties, they'll get less casualties. So one fine day, we mustered 46 tubes, 1,000 guns, chose 3 objectives. The highest feature got 36.13620, the highest feature in Kargil, and blasted away 3 localities. Thereafter, they never fired on us. So artillery used innovatively can do so much of work. It's so effective. And I'm happy that we were able to contribute. Now what is happening now? There was a time when these cannons were horse-drawn, bullock-drawns, or elephant-moved. So they moved behind the walking infantry and the cavalry, and they were called support weapons. Today things have changed. Today autonomous platforms in Ukraine which can detect, survey, detect, get coordinates, fire and move. There's something called HIMARS. In India too, we have got good weapon system now. We can fire enemy at 200 kilometers with our BrahMos missile. Then fire them at 100 kilometers with our smudge weapons. Then fire them at 50 kilometers with pinakas, and then guns 40 kilometers. So every successive tier, we will engage them. So we are doing a good job, and I'm sure that people who want to join army in future would remember that today's weapon is the firepower weapon to win a war. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Lakhwinder, for a very enlightening presentation of the use of artillery firepower in the Drass sector. There are a few things which I want to just bring out. One is, you would have noticed that in most of our areas we launched frontal assaults. Yes, frontal assaults in our teachings, we don't really propagate launching frontal assaults. But then how did we get about it? We had to create surprise and deception measures, divert the enemy's attention from the actual line of assault. And that is how we managed to succeed in launching frontal assaults, not only in 5140, but in other areas. It also happened in the Batalik sector because we just didn't have this. Anyway, his flanks were covered, his rear was covered, we could do nothing about it. Next is, as far as our junior leadership is concerned, it's hats off to our junior leaderships, our young officers, our JCOs and men. I mean, they led from the front. They had forgotten everything about their families and anybody. Their job was, मेरे यूनिट का नाम निशान है, इसको मैं इसकी इज्जत मैं डाउन करने नहीं दूंगा. So that is the kind of motivational level that these people had. I was at one point of time asked during the capture of Tololing by somebody that capture some live enemy, and bring them down. Now our boys are not going to capture live people. When your own kith and kin are dying, you are not going to leave them alive. Another request was, let's return some of their bodies back. So I asked them, I said, who the hell is going to carry their bodies down? He says, our boys. I said, sorry, our boys will not carry enemy bodies down. So these are the kind of things that we inculcate in the armed forces. An enemy is an enemy, and that is the way he has to be treated. We had a lot of difficulties as far as in the initial stages about, we had very much shortage of troops, whether it was in the Batalik sector, whether it was in the Drass Moscow sector. Definitely we had it. But we got it at the right time and at the right places. And yes, in certain areas, we did face problems in getting them or carrying out our operations. But even as far as the firepower was concerned, it was considerable. And that is how we were able to achieve our objectives and achieve success in the entire operations.